when I started the Kickstarter, I didn't have these pieces, or indeed anything like this, included in the toolkit. It kind of arose from suggestions that some of the backers made, a couple of backers made, just when I had explained how the cog and snowflake interlock system works. And I have a video where I go into this in detail showing how these two work, so if you're not sure, do look that up. Now the cog shape, the purpose of the cog shape is that it has to lock hexagons like this. So you have a cog in the bottom of a surface hexagon, and that's going to lock it into either the base if it's at the bottom, so it won't move around, or if it's higher up a slope, it'll lock it into the sort of a pillar of rise hexes beneath it, which is in turn locked into the base. So the requirements of this interlock cog shape were that it had to be rotationally symmetric, such that you could turn this around, and whichever way you turned it, it would always fit in. That was the first requirement. And the second one was at the edge of your board, it would have to, for a half piece like this, semi-hex, you'd want to make sure that it was going to be locked in place, that it wouldn't, once it's, if I line that up, once it was in place, it wouldn't just slide out. Now that second element that stopped me from sliding out is why I had a relatively complicated shape like this cog rather than a simple hexagon like this. Because both of these have the property of being rotationally symmetric 6 ways, but only the cog will resist sliding out from an edge piece. And if you cut that in half, there's nothing to stop that from sliding out. But because that sliding out element is only important at the edge of your board, there's no real need to have the complexity of the cog shape everywhere else on the board, on the inner parts. The simple hex is sufficient. So, I mean, for my part, I'd already had done all these cogs before anyone pointed out there was some obvious next step that you could have a simpler shape like this, which is much quicker to cut out, easier. So I've not processed myself, but if you've bought your toolkit since if you were on the original Kickstarter and you got the Super Pro Maker, you would have had these pieces, and likewise now if you've got the professional toolkit, which have released since the Kickstarter, then you'd have these pieces too. And I've not shown in a video before how these would be used, but I should do that now. So first of all, here's an offcut. So this is an offcut which is much too small to be useful either for full hex, but I should be able to get, I think, 2 of these out of it. So let's grab my bolts and wing nuts. This is a fairly thick piece of polystyrene going through. You wouldn't want to go much thicker than this. And the reason you don't want to go too thick is because these cones, and that cone is spread quite far as I pushed it through. So we're kind of at the limit, especially for a small piece like this. with the wing nuts, I've got to make sure that I line them up like this. If I have it turned off to the side like that, the wire is going to catch on that wing nut. So they've got to be lined up such that they're not overhanging the edges. That looks about right. So let's have a go cutting it out. Yep, still feels good. Let's go down this side. Okay, now I need to adjust it. Making sure I haven't missed any bits. There, so you can see how much quicker that was to cut out than it would be to do a full cog shape, which I've done in another video. Here you can see my bolt holes quite big here. Which way is that going? Right, having done that, I need to reduce this down to size, to the right depth rather, right thickness. So that's two cut out from it. Not a bit thin really. Okay, and the fact that these holes are missing from there doesn't really matter. So the next thing you'd want to do is attach them onto the bottom of your hexagon. But how do you get it in the right place, and which way around do you put it? Well, if you use one of these, that lines up perfectly for you. So a bit of PVA glue onto that. Sorry, let's see. On the underside of here, put it in place, and you can remove this, weigh that down, and that's going to, whilst it sets, and that's going to be in exactly the right place you need it to be. Now something I've talked about before, and I think I have, at least for in the Kickstarter I did, but I've never shown, is that, you know, why is this hexagon this particular size, and why is it offset from the outer hex? You know, why have I not positioned it like this instead, which is probably more aesthetically pleasing? And the reason for both of those is because I wanted to have some kind of reverse compatibility. So this hex here, I don't know why you can see this, but it fits exactly into the middle of the cog shape, which gives you some reverse compatibility. So for instance, if you've already made made your snowflakes with cogs in them, or you've made, you know, some of your outer hexes with cogs, you could still switch later on if you wanted to. or if you change your mind about a piece, you could have some of your surface hexes having these having the simpler hex interlock, and some having the cog interlock, and they'd all manage to fit. They'd all manage to lock correctly into the layer beneath. I hope that's clear, because it's compatible, because it's reverse compatible like that. What it's not, well, you obviously can't do the opposite. So if you've got a cog shape on your upper surface, and you've got a hex on the layer below, that's clearly not going to fit in. The other way around will fit. So it just gives you a bit of extra flexibility, and that's why this is the shape it is. Because the cog shape is actually made up of effectively of two hexagons which are offset from each other. So that's that really. Yeah, if you can see they're much quicker to make than the cog shapes, and they perform just as good a job in interlocking your hexes in the centre of your board. It's not a complete substitute. You do need these for the outside of your board, like this.